Here's the darkness. They're in range.
Hey, welcome back to the channel. So in this episode, we're going to start talking about Epic Esper. And I do want to start off with Mona, your very first Epic Esper in this game. And there's a very good reason why the game developer gives you Mona as your very first Esper. Because he's going to help you grind the content in Sonic Rift, in Dislyte Land, in Cube Miracle, and all of your story progression. And then your Calamity Island, etc, etc. Like, she is very good at dealing AoE damage, and pairing her up with Jiangman will result into maximum damage output. But I do want to talk about Jiangman in her episode. Like, she I believe is a new player, like the game developer will give you an event where you can choose among 3 Esper, like either Jinhei, Jiangman, or somebody else. Always pick Jiangman first, because Jiangman will deal the most damage in every single content she is in, because of the Nether Bloom. Nether Bloom is a debuff that will explode once the enemy takes 5 hits. And this is why Mona is best friend for Jiangman, because Mona have the highest multi-hit AoE skill in this game. Her third skill attacks all enemies 4 times, essentially making her Nether Bloom only requires 1 more hit to get triggered. So those hits can be triggered by any other Esper, especially like someone who can deal AoE damage. So Mona's job is to just reduce that Nether Bloom trigger hits to only 1 hit, and that's here. Her job is done. So if you don't really aim for her damage, you don't really need her to level her up to level 60. You can just stop her level at level 50. But if you do aim for her damage too, like most likely in the Dislyte Land, because in Dislyte Land the Inferno boss here, the Shadow Fire, will summon minions that you need to kill them as fast as possible. So you're gonna need, if you still in the very early or mid game, you do need the help of Mona and Jiangman to be able to kill them really fast. So at that point in time, you do want your Mona to get increased to level 60 and actually build her. But before then, her job is to only trigger Jiangman's Nether Bloom. So going into her first skill, attacks 1 enemy damage 130% attack, 10% higher than normal. And the best part about this skill is that upon killing the enemy gains 1 turn and Lunar Hail cooldown minus 1 turn. This Lunar Hail cooldown minus 1 turn is in her 6 resonance, so you do need to get her to 6 resonance first. But this is just a nice bonus. Like, the best part about this skill is this one: upon killing the enemy gains 1 turn. That means that if you manage to kill someone using your Avatara, then that means that she will get a turn straight away at that point in time. So her skill also only have 3 turns cooldown for both her second and third skill. So this bonus turn is really insanely good for her to reduce the cooldown of her other skill. And then the Lunar Hail cooldown reduction here, just imagine this: if she uses her third skill, the cooldown will go into 3 turns, but then it's already gonna reduce to 2 turns because she already used up her turn using this Lunar Hail. So she only have 2 turns cooldown left, and then she gonna use her second skill, and that will reduce the cooldown to only 1 turn left. And at that point, any other Esper required to use their first skill first before they are able to use her third skill again. But if you manage to use Avatara and let her kill someone, she will straight away be able to use her third skill again right away at that point in time. So that is insanely good for her using Avatara in here if you can get lucky. And that's why the damage here will ensure that you will be able to do that last hit on the enemy. Now going into her second skill, attacks all enemies, damage 70% attack. This is alright. Usually AoE damage will deal 100% damage, but because this is a second skill, then 70% damage makes sense. And it restores HP, healing 30% of damage dealt. If you are still progressing through the content, or leveling up, then this will make sure that your Mona will be able to sustain herself. But the best part about this skill is this one steals 10% of enemy AP. And because this attacks all enemies, that means that you will be able to steal 50% of the enemy's AP because you're gonna hit 5 enemies. So this will also make sure that she will rotate really fast, and thus the cooldown of 3 turns will feel like it's nothing. Like she will be able to use her third skill and second skill very fast. And the bonus here, the Abilimon is not required here. If you have a dedicated healer, then obviously she doesn't need to heal herself. So you don't really want to waste your Abilimon to her second skill if you can, if you are able to do so, if you are still very early or in the mid game where Abilimon is very scarce. So going into her third skill, this is the best part, attacks all enemies 4 times. The multi-hit here is really good, and the total damage here is also 115% attack, 15% higher than normal, and it increases critical damage by 30%. So she already have insane damage using her third skill, and the final damage is also increased by 10% if you can get her to Resonance 1. And the best part also is that it only requires 2 Abilimon. So if you can get lucky and give her the least amount of Abilimon, then you do want the Abilimon to just go to her third skill, because the first skill is kind of like optional. Like if you are still very early in the game, then you don't really rely on the first skill being able to kill the enemy. Like you're gonna need to be really lucky if you can able to trigger this. But if you are already in the late game, you already over level the content, so it's very easy to kill someone using her first skill in the PvE content. So that's when you do want to increase this damage to make sure that, you know, whoever she hits will be able to die even at 50% health. Now, she also comes with captain ability. So when you don't have any other captain to bring, because you're gonna bring Mona and Jiangman a lot when leveling up and you know, progressing through the PvE content, so you can always use your Mona as the captain there, essentially giving attack bonus to all of your allies if you don't really need the speed bonus. But if you use Tang Xuan or Li Ling, because you're gonna also get them at the very beginning of the game, you can increase your attack even further at 30% here. But there are cases where you don't want to bring Tang Xuan and Li Ling, mainly like some content like Dislyte Land. So she will be able to become your captain at that point in time. Now going into her advancement here, I already explained level 50 if you only aim for the multi-heal, level 60 if you are now starting to grind the Shadow Fire in Dislyte Land. Now her resonance, because this is the epic Esper resonance, so the first one, second one, fourth one, and the sixth one will change, you know, will give additional benefit aside from just stats. So the first one, final damage as usual. Then second one, when HP is 100% critical rate plus 25%. This will make sure that her third skill critical damage will going to trigger. Like this is a nice increase, but you do need to top her HP up to 100% all the time. This is very easy to do in late game, but in very early and mid game, this is kind of hard, especially when you are still progressing through the content. So you cannot really rely on this one, but if you are already late game in the end game, then you can reduce your critical rate on your equipment stats and focusing more on the critical damage and your attack damage and also your speed, because you do need speed very much. Now the fourth resonance, when the target's HP is below 50%, damage plus 12%. So because she deals multi-hit, if she is able to reduce the enemy's HP below 50% using just her first or second multi-hit, then her third and fourth multi-hit will get the bonus damage increase from here, which is really good when you are grinding content after you reach the end game. Now the sixth one is the one that gives you a cooldown reduction for your Lunar Hail if you are able to kill enemies using your Moonshot. This is insanely good, but it's kind of like, you know, depending on your luck too, whether you are able to kill someone using your first ability. Giving her avatar will make sure that happen often, but again, it's not a guaranteed thing to always gonna trigger all the time. Now her ascension is also quite good, like her last one gives attack bonus and the fifth one gives her critical rate. So this means that she already have enough critical rate stats from her ascension and her resonance. So you can just get low on the equipment, on the critical rate, and increase her further on the critical damage and attack. And also the first and the second ascension here is really good because this increase HP, like I always mention in the rare Esper episodes. And the fourth one is giving her HP. This is kind of okay, like it's much better if she gets another damage increase from here, but this will at least give her some HP so she can survive and probably life still using her second skill, healing herself out of her damage. Now the third ascension is the one that gives the bonus AP, stealing 10% of enemies AP using her second skill here. So obviously you do want to get her ascension to the max, but if you only aim for her multi-hit, then she doesn't need ascension at all. Now the rival rune, the game developer recommends you to go war, but see there is a good reason for that, because in a normal case scenario, you don't really need her to move first, because you do want your Jiangman to be the one to move first, because she needs to put Nether Bloom before any of her allies move. But for Mona's case, as long as she moves after Jiangman move, then at any point in time, it's alright for her to move. But if you want to min-max that, then obviously you do want your Mona to move right after your Jiangman, because if your other allies have some kind of multi-hits, like you don't want to over multi-hit the Nether Bloom, like hopefully you just min-maxing the number of multi-hits you need to trigger the Nether Bloom, and the rest of the damage, Jiangman can apply a new Nether Bloom to the enemy, and the other allies will be able to use their other multi-hits to trigger another Nether Bloom, etc, etc. You know, if you do want to min-max that. But this means that Mona, if you give her pure damage, like going full into critical damage and attack damage, she will be able to flatten the enemy by herself because of this bonus 15% attack, like 15% higher than normal, and also the bonus 30% critical damage. This is huge, you know. Don't underestimate the critical damage in here. Like this is an AoE damage, so obviously every single enemy is going to feel that damage, whether they are a tank or they are a paper DPS. Now going into her Divinate, when the target's HP is below 50%, Moonshot's final damage plus 20%. Moonshot is the first skill. So it's going to be, if you have everything here, like in giving her a Bilimon for the first skill and then getting her Divinate here, it will be very easy for her to kill someone using her first skill. So this will trigger more often, and that's why her build is already really good as your very first epic Esper in this game. So we're gonna see her in action, like in the Sonic Rift. I already have the team here that I built for a Sonic Rift grind, and Mona is an essential part in here because you do want your Jiangman to give Nether Bloom first, and after that triggered by Mona. So the gear here also is you do not want to follow my gear because I have accuracy here. Mona doesn't put any debuff on her target. So that means that accuracy is totally useless for her. This is just because I'm lazy to build another set, like a special set for her. So I'm using a Li Guang gear for Mona, and I'm using Sander's gear for Jiangman because the speed needed for these two is just nice. Like because those two sets have a very high speed and also attack and also critical damage and just nice critical rate. So that's why I use this set. But if you do want to think about the stats that Mona can get, you obviously need as much critical damage and attack with at least probably like 50% critical rate here, so that with the default 10% here, that means that she gets 60% critical rate, and if she is at 100% HP, she will get another 25% bonus and also another 10% from her ascension, giving her a total of 95% critical rate. So it's already going to guarantee that she gonna inflict a critical damage. So yeah, that's her build. So let's go into this Sonic Rift here and see how she performs. So this is why you do need Mona. Like, this is what's gonna happen in every single content that she is in. She will essentially be the one who will trigger all of Jiangman's Nether Blue. And I do have Raven here just to fill out that empty spot there when Jiangman have her third skill on cooldown. So at that point in time, Raven will be the one who fill that empty spot there. But if you don't have Raven, then you can just use any other AoE Esper, like for example, like Camille here, Camille here. She is an insurance for me in case that my Raven unable to kill anyone there. So yeah, that is how Mona and Jiangman interaction in every single content. So you can use her in Sonic Rift. She is going to be insanely good in Dislyte Land, in Shadowfire, especially because Shadowfire you need to kill the minion there. And here's the thing, like some Esper have a limit of hitting a number of Esper. Like AoE damage sometimes. Like some Esper can hit like 6 random hit like Chloe, Gaius, etc. Because this boss spawn like more than 5 minions, so an AoE damage will have a higher total damage in this case because it attacks all enemies. Like for example, if you attack 5 enemies with 100% damage using AoE damage, so in total you actually deal 500% of your attack damage because every single enemy will contribute 100% of your damage dealing there. But if you have like 10 enemies, that means that you're gonna deal a total of 1000 attack damage there. So that means that in terms of total damage, if you deal AoE damage to more enemies, then it's gonna give you more value out of like a hit that specifically mentioned it only hits 6 times or 5 times to random enemies. And then after that, in also Calamity Island here, because Calamity Island you can only bring Esper of the certain element there, and the best part about Mona and Jiangman combo is that both of them are flow Esper. So you can use Mona and Jiangman's combo in Calamity Island for the flow here, for the flow element here. Too bad today is for Inferno here, otherwise I would have shown you how it works on the flow, but you can already see how they work in the Sonic Rift there. It's just the same in Cube, in Calamity, in Temporal, in Infinity, in Chaos Realm, in the Dislyte Land, in every single story in here. You will always going to use the Mona and Jiangman combo if you do want to deal as much AoE damage as possible and clear the content as fast as possible. So that's it for Mona, guys. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.